A very good morning to all the participants of this course. Today's lecture is going to be on Chapter 1 of the Income Tax Act. And I am going to full screen your screens. So I think I have full screened your screens now. Today's lecture will be on Chapter 1, including sections 1, 2, and 3 of the Income Tax Act. And we will begin with section 1. And in the course of 3 lectures, we will be coming to the end of section 3. Section 2 being a little detailed one, and we'll be dealing with it accordingly. Okay friends, the Income Tax Act 1961, as you can see, it was the 43rd Act of the year 1961, and the document that is being presented before you, that has been taken from the site incometax.gov.in, incometaxindia.gov.in, where the sections are available up to the amendment by Act number 23 of 2019. So this is the latest amended document that is being presented to you. The Income Tax Act was an act to consolidate and amend the law relating to income tax and super tax. Super tax was another tax that was being charged at that point of time. So it was enacted by the Parliament in the 12th year of the Republic of India. We'll start with Chapter 1, preliminary part of it. The Section 1 deals with short title, extent, and commencement. Those who are, I will be scrolling the document. If you are not able to see it in the entire screen, there is a small icon on the right hand side saying floating panel. You can click that icon and make it larger screen. Those who are on the mobiles and are not able to see, they can probably expand it also by zooming it with your fingers. Now, Section 1 says that this act may be called the Income Tax Act 1961. That is the name that is being given to the act. And it extends to the whole of India. And it says that save as otherwise provided. The meaning of the word save is except, सिवाय हिंदी में अगर आप कहते हैं. Save as otherwise provided in this act, it shall come into force on the first day of April 1962. ये फोर्स में आएगा 1962 ईयर के फर्स्ट डे ऑफ अप्रैल को. अदरवाइज प्रोवाइडेड यानी दूसरे ढंग से कोई प्रावधान अगर किया हो, इसके विपरीत कोई प्रावधान अगर कहीं और किया गया हो, उसको छोड़ते हुए, ये एक्ट 1 अप्रैल 1962 को इन फोर्स आ गया है. Section 2 of the Income Tax Act, we come to Section 2. Section 2 says that it is a definition section, and if you have a look at all the other acts also which are being passed by the Parliament, normally the Section 2 deals with the definitions. So the words that are being used in this act if they need a definition, so once it comes into force from 1st day of April 1962, it means that anything that happens after that date, this act will be applicable to only that. Any action that takes place after that date, it will be applicable to only that period which comes from after that date. All the actions which have happened after that date. So if an income has been earned after 1st day of April 1962, then this act will become applicable to it. So now we go on to section 2, and section 2 says that in this act, unless the context otherwise requires, अगर संदर्भ किसी और चीज को की रिक्वायरमेंट कर रहा है उसको छोड़ते हो. एडवांस टैक्स का मतलब क्या है? Advance tax means the advance tax payable in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 17C. So in case any word is defined elsewhere in the Act, that definition is imported into the definition section. Because if a provision has been made, and in that provision, if a word has been defined, it is not necessary that it will be there in the definition section also, but it is specially provided in the definition section that word would take the meaning from that provision itself, because there is no point in defining the same thing 2 times in the Act. If something has been defined in some place, then that definition is imported into the definition section. So here, advance tax, this word's definition has been taken from Chapter 17C, where the word advance tax has been explained and defined. And that is what is mentioned here. Now we come to subsection 1A. After a section number, the number which comes after the section is the subsection. For example, we are reading subsection 1A of section 2. Inside the subsection, what is there? It is a clause, and inside the clause there is a subclause. So here you can say that 2 is the section, 1A is the subsection, and A is the clause here, and this 1 is the subclause. So what is the meaning of agricultural income? 1A talks about agricultural income. What is the meaning of the word agricultural income? Agricultural income means any rent or revenue derived from land which is situated in India and is used for agricultural purposes. A land which is situated in India, if any rent is derived from that land, अगर कोई जमीन इंडिया में स्थित है और अगर कोई रेंट उससे प्राप्त होता है, यानी कि उसको किराए पे देकर अगर कोई रेंट प्राप्त होता है, या उस जमीन से कोई रेवेन्यू प्राप्त होता है. अब यहां पर जो रेवेन्यू शब्द है, 2 शब्द होते हैं, कैपिटल और रेवेन्यू. कोई भी चीज आपके पास आ रही है, कोई इनकम आपके पास आ रही है, तो वो रेवेन्यू के रूप में हो सकती है या कैपिटल के रूप में हो सकती है. कैपिटल के रूप में जो चीज आती है आपके पास, वो आपको स्थायी रूप से फायदा देती है. Something which gives you a long term benefit. और रेवेन्यू रूप में जो आती है वो साल दर साल आने वाली चीज या समय समय पे आपके पास आने वाली जो इनकम होती है उसको रेवेन्यू नेचर का इनकम बोले। तो यहां पर कोई भी रेंट या रेवेन्यू, रेवेन्यू आप समझ लीजिए समय समय से आने वाली जो भी प्राप्तियां हैं, यदि लैंड से डिराइव होता है, जो लैंड इंडिया में सिचुएटेड है और वो लैंड एग्रीकल्चरल पर्पसेस के लिए यूज हो रहा है, एग्रीकल्चर पर्पसेस के लिए लैंड का यूज होना बहुत जरूरी है। अगर एग्रीकल्चर पर्पसेस के लिए लैंड नहीं यूज हो रहा, खाली पड़ा हुआ है, so somebody asked me a question. If the question is asked in the exam that income tax was introduced in India in which year, then answer will be 1860, 1922, 1961. इस सवाल का जवाब 1860 होना चाहिए, because for the first time income tax was introduced in India by the Britishers in the year 1860. In the year 1922, Income Tax Act 1922 was passed, and in the year 1961, Income Tax Act 1961 was passed, and it was made applicable from 1/4/62. Now, agricultural income means that the rent or revenue derived from land which is situated in India and is used for agricultural purpose. Usage for agricultural purpose is important. If the land is lying fallow, not being used, बेकार पड़ा हुआ है, बंजर पड़ा हुआ है, तो उसको किराए पे दे के आपको इनकम प्राप्त करें तो वो एग्रीकल्चरल इनकम नहीं होगी। 1B says that any income which is derived from such land. Now what do you mean by such land? Such land मतलब इस प्रकार का लैंड, इस प्रकार का लैंड मतलब लैंड विच इज यूज्ड फॉर एग्रीकल्चरल पर्पसेस। जब हम सच वर्ड यूज कर रहे हैं, इट इज टेकिंग अस बैक टू ए, because the word land has been used in A initially, and the land which is situated in India. So the land which is situated in India used for agricultural purposes, any income which is derived from such land by agriculture, number one, that would also be considered agricultural income, and or the performance by a cultivator, income derived by the performance by a cultivator or receiver of rent in kind. कल्टिवेटर मतलब जो खेत को जोतता है, जो लैंड को कल्टिवेट करता है, या वो रेंट प्राप्त करता है। रेंट इन काइंड का मतलब है रेंट इन कैश के विपरीत। एक हो सकता है रेंट इन कैश, एक होता है रेंट इन काइंड। कई बार कोई चीज आपको कैश में मिलती है, कोई चीज आपको काइंड में मिलती है। काइंड मतलब वस्तु के रूप में। जैसे कई बार खेतों को बटाई वगैरह पर दे दिया जाता है और उस पर जो फसल होती है, फसल के रूप में आपको रेंट मिल जाता है। तो जो भी रिसीवर है उस रेंट इन काइंड का, या जो कल्टीवेटर है, जो कल्टीवेटर उस लैंड पर क्या कुछ परफॉर्म कर रहा है, यानी ये रिसीवर भी रेंट इन काइंड का कुछ परफॉर्म कर रहा है। द परफॉर्मेंस बाय द कल्टीवेटर और द रिसीवर of any process ordinarily employed by a cultivator or receiver of rent in kind to render the produce raised or received by him fit to be taken to the market. यदि कोई परफॉर्मेंस किया जाता है कल्टीवेटर या रिसीवर के द्वारा किसी ऐसे प्रक्रिया का, किसी ऐसे प्रोसेस का जो कि साधारण रूप से वो कल्टीवेटर एम्प्लॉय करता है, यानी लगाता है उस प्रक्रिया को, टू रेंडर द प्रोड्यूस रेज्ड फिट टू बी टेकन टू द मार्केट, कि जो भी प्रोड्यूस उगाई गई है या प्रोड्यूस जो प्राप्त हुई है वो उसको मार्केट में ले जाने के लिए फिट कर दे। जैसे आपने धान काटा, देन यू हैव टू टेक इट टू द थ्रेशर and many other processes may be done, cleaning and other things, before that produce can be taken to the market to be sold. So whatever processes are carried out to make the produce fit enough to be taken to the market, if by carrying out those processes, अगर उन प्रक्रियाओं को करने के बाद या उन प्रक्रियाओं को करने से अगर जो भी इनकम डिराइव होती है ऐसी लैंड से, वो भी एग्रीकल्चर इनकम में शामिल होगी. उसके बाद income derived from such land by sale by a cultivator or receiver of the rent in kind of the produce raised. जो भी प्रोड्यूस उगाई गई है उसको सेल करने से, या जो प्रोड्यूस रिसीव की गई है उसको सेल करने से, रिसीव का केस रेंट इन काइंड वाले रिसीवर के केस में होगा, in respect of which no process has been performed other than a process of the nature described in paragraph 2 of this subclause. इस सब क्लॉज के यानी बी सब क्लॉज का जो पैराग्राफ 2 है, यहां पर बी को सब क्लॉज कहा जा रहा है और 2 को पैराग्राफ कहा जा रहा है. ये भी एक और तरीका हो सकता है कहने का. अदरवाइज इन सम प्लेसेस यू विल फाइंड कि दिस बीइंग कॉल्ड अ क्लॉज. स्पेसिफिकली जब इसका नंबर किया जाता है 1 2 3, देन इट इज समटाइम्स कॉल्ड अ क्लॉज. And when it is put in alphabet form, it is used as a subclause. So when a cultivator or receiver of rent in kind sells the produce which has been raised or received by him, in respect of which he has carried out the process which has made the produce fit to be taken to the market, and no other process has been carried out, केवल मार्केट में ले जाने के लिए, टेकन टू द मार्केट, तो क्वेश्चन कुड बी आस्क्ड कि व्हाट आर दोज प्रोसेसेस व्हिच कैन मेक द प्रोड्यूस फिट टू बी टेकन टू द मार्केट. So for example, if rice grain has to be taken out from the plant, then a number of processes may be carried out: drying and threshing, cleaning, sorting, and after that maybe washing and drying. So all those processes make it fit to be taken to the market, and after those processes, the produce is sold and the income is derived by selling that produce in the market. In that case, that income is also part of the agriculture income. Then paragraph C is there. Sorry, subclause C. Subclause C says that any income which is derived from any building which is owned and occupied by the receiver of the rent or revenue of any such land, or occupied by the cultivator or receiver of the rent in kind. If there is a building, अगर कोई बिल्डिंग है जिसका ओनर या जो ऑक्यूपायर है वो रिसीवर ऑफ द रेंट है या रिसीवर ऑफ द रेंट और रेवेन्यू है उस लैंड का, या फिर द बिल्डिंग इज ऑक्यूपाइड बाय द कल्टिवेटर or the receiver of rent in kind, of any land with respect to which or the produce of which any process mentioned in paragraphs 2, 3 of subclause B is carried on. Income derived from any building which is owned and occupied by the receiver of the rent or revenue of any such land, or occupied by the cultivator or the receiver of rent in kind. Either it is owned and occupied by the receiver, or just occupied by the cultivator or the receiver of the rent in kind of the land. Now, the process which is being carried out here is mentioned इन B3 द प्रोसेस मीन्स द मार्केट में ले जाने के लिए जो प्रोसेस उसमें किया जाता है, अगर वो प्रोसेस वहाँ पे किया जा रहा है तो उस केस में उस बिल्डिंग से भी जो इनकम डिराइव होगी, जहाँ पर उस बिल्डिंग में वो प्रोसेसेस किए जा रहे हैं, उस बिल्डिंग का जो इस्तेमाल है वो उन प्रोसेसेस को करने के लिए किया जा रहा है कि उसको मार्केट में ले जाने लायक कर दें। तो ऐसे केस में जो भी इनकम उस बिल्डिंग से डिराइव होती है वो भी एग्रीकल्चरल इनकम में शामिल होगी। Now, provided that the building is on or in the immediate vicinity of the land, provided means it's a condition. This provided is the condition for subclause C. That is, subclause C is not complete till the time the condition is read. Provided that the building is on or in the immediate vicinity of the land, either the building is on that land or very near to that land. Immediate vicinity मतलब बहुत पास है, बहुत आसपास है। कोई जरूरी नहीं है कि लैंड के ऊपर, जरूरी नहीं है कि लैंड के ऊपर ही बिल्डिंग हो। वो बिल्डिंग लैंड के आसपास बगल में भी हो सकती है। And is a building which the receiver of the rent or revenue or the cultivator or the receiver of the rent in kind by reason of his connection with the land requires. बिल्डिंग की जरूरत किसको है? बिल्डिंग की जरूरत उस व्यक्ति को है जो कि रेंट प्राप्त कर रहा है या रेवेन्यू प्राप्त कर रहा है, या वो कल्टीवेटर को जरूरत है, या जिसको रेंट इन काइंड रिसीव हो रहा है उसको जरूरत है। बाय रीजन ऑफ हिज कनेक्शन विद द लैंड, बिकॉज उसका कोई कनेक्शन है उस लैंड से, उसको जोत रहा है, या उसका वो ओनर है, उसका कोई कनेक्शन है लैंड के साथ, और उस कनेक्शन की वजह से ही रिक्वायर्स द बिल्डिंग एज ए ड्वेलिंग हाउस, अपने रहने के लिए उसको चाहिए, या स्टोर हाउस के रूप में चाहिए, या आउट हाउस के रूप में चाहिए। आउट बिल्डिंग, आउट बिल्डिंग जैसे होती है, आप गए खेती करने के लिए, कुछ काम किया, थोड़ी देर आपको थक गए तो आप आउट हाउस में जाके लेट जाएंगे, या आपने कोई फसल काटी, थोड़ी देर के लिए आउट हाउस में रखी, उसके बाद घर ले आए। सो यू नीड अ हाउस आउट देयर इन द फील्ड समटाइम्स। मिस्टर भगवान शोभा पाटे, प्लीज कीप योर ऑडियो ऑफ। So you need the building sometimes to use it as a storehouse or as a dwelling house or as an outbuilding. And if it is required to be used as an outbuilding or storehouse or a dwelling house by the person who has some connection with the land, and he is one of those people, like one of those, like receiver of the rent or revenue, cultivator, or the receiver of the rent in kind, not any other person. And number two, this is the subclause 2 of the proviso. That is, it is an additional condition for the income from the building to be treated as the agricultural income. The land is either assessed to land revenue in India, either this land is assessed to land revenue in India or is subject to a local rate assessed and collected by the officers of the government. Where it is not formally assessed to land revenue, then some local municipality rate or any government officer comes and collects some rate of tax, local rate, the स्थानीय जो कर कोई कलेक्ट कर सकता है उस पर, यानी कुछ असेसमेंट उसका हो रहा है। और where the land is not so assessed, और अगर लैंड असेस नहीं हो रहा बिल्कुल भी to land revenue, or it is or subject to a local rate, then you have to see whether it is situated within certain limits or not. So now, what are those limits? The limits are that if the land is situated in an area which is comprised within a municipality or a cantonment board. You are aware that cantonment boards are heading the military areas generally, known by the name of Cant. Like if you are in Pune, so Pune Cant area is it is being run by a cantonment board. So normally urban areas have municipalities or cantonment boards. So if there is a land which is situated in a municipality area, an area which is within the jurisdiction of a municipality, or which is within the jurisdiction of a cantonment board, the municipality word can be used by some other word names also, like municipality, municipal corporation. Somewhere it is called the notified area committee. Somewhere it may be called the town area committee or the town committee, or it may be known by any other name. So wherever a municipality or something sort of a municipality which is called by any other name, or a cantonment board, it's within its jurisdiction that land is there. Now, which has a population of not less than 10,000. So the cantonment board of the municipality has a population of not less than 10,000, more than 10,000 or 10,000. And this land is not situated in that municipality area. So wherever the population of the municipality or the cantonment board is 10,000 or more, and the land is not situated in that area, so that means it is not situated in the dense area, it is situated outside the dense area. Right? So in that case, it can be brought under the category of agricultural land, and therefore income derived from such land will be treated as agricultural income. But of course, if the population is more than 10,000 but less than 1 lakh, if the population is more than 10,000 but not exceeding 1 lakh, meaning 1 lakh or less, then even a region of 2 kilometers from the local limits of the municipality or cantonment, if the land is even within the 2 kilometer limit outside the local limit of the municipality or the cantonment, still in that case it will not be considered as agricultural land. And then we go on to, if the population is more than 1 lakh and not exceeding 10 lakhs, then you can even go up to 6 kilometers from the local limits, and any land which is situated even within the distance of 6 kilometers from the local limits, when that would not be treated as agricultural land, and income from it will not be treated as agricultural income. And if of course the population is more than 10 lakh, then 8 kilometer limit. So these are the second set of conditions here. The first set of condition is in the first proviso here, and this first proviso and the second proviso, they are, both provisos are dealing with 1A. And now we come to the explanation 1. Explanation 1 says that for the removal, it is hereby declared that revenue derived from land shall include and shall be deemed never to have included any income arising from the transfer of any land referred to in items A and B of subclause 3 of clause 14. Somebody has audio. Wait a minute. I'll just look at it. Please switch off your video. Kiran Shode, please switch off your video audio. Okay. Is it done? Fine. Now, for the removal of doubts, it is hereby declared that revenue which is derived from land will not be including and shall deem never to have included any income arising from the transfer of any land, which is referred to in this clause. Now, this clause is relating to capital assets, and when capital assets are sold, we normally we treat them as income from, and if there is any income, we treat it as income from capital gains. So wherever there is a transfer of any land, which is a capital asset, then the revenue which is derived from such land that is mentioned in this section will not include that kind of revenue which is got from the transfer of the land. Now, explanation 2. For the removal of doubts, it is hereby declared that income derived from any building or land referred to in subclause C. Subclause C refers to building and building situated on a land arising from the use of such building of land or land for any purpose, including letting for residential purpose or for the purpose of any business or profession other than agriculture, falling under subclause A or subclause B, shall not be agricultural income. So if there is a building or land, अगर कोई बिल्डिंग है या लैंड है जिसका रेफरेंस ऊपर सब क्लॉज सी में किया गया कि एनी इनकम डिराइव्ड फ्रॉम द बिल्डिंग which is situated on that land on which that cultivation is going on or in the immediate vicinity of it, then income which is derived from that building is also agricultural income. But here it has been clarified that if the purpose for which the building or the land is used is other than agriculture which is defined in A or B, A or B clearly states that it is either straightaway agriculture or the performance to be taken to the market or rent or revenue derived from land. So if the building is not being used for, building which is referred in C is not being used for any purpose which is mentioned in A or B, then income derived from that building will not be treated as agricultural income, even whether it is let out for residential purpose or for the purpose of any business or profession. It should be directly related with agriculture, which is mentioned in A and B, not simply a residential letting. Somebody else comes from some different village and you let out your house on the land to that person who has no relation with your agriculture. So that income will not be treated as agricultural income under any condition. Now the explanation 3 of this clause says that for the purpose of this clause, any income which is derived from saplings or seedlings grown in a nursery shall be deemed to be agricultural income. This is a deeming provision, and it says that if the income is derived from saplings or seedlings, like you have a nursery, और नर्सरी में आप छोटे छोटे पौधे उगा रहे हैं, seedlings are the very small plants which grow out from the seed, and saplings are little bigger. So if you are growing the seedlings and the saplings in the nursery, and then you are deriving income out of it. Income means you are selling them and deriving income out of the grown saplings or seedlings which are being grown by you. It is not that you just buy the saplings from somewhere and sell them off somewhere else. Buying and selling of saplings is not agricultural income. The income has to be derived from the saplings or seedling grown in a nursery by a person. And then it will be deemed to be agricultural income. Now, explanation 4. For the purpose of the clause 2 of the proviso to subclause C, population means the population according to the last preceding census, of which the relevant figures have been published before the first day of the previous year. Population का मतलब है पिछला जो सेंसस हुआ था, पिछली जो जनगणना हुई थी, उसमें जो पॉपुलेशन पता लगाई गई थी, it is that population which is being referred here and which has been already published before the first day of the previous year. Previous year के शुरू होने से पहले अगर वो पब्लिश कर दी गई है, बार बार वर्ड प्रीवियस ईयर भी आ रहा है, तो although you people are already aware of it because you are in income tax for some time, but the definition of the word previous year will come in section 3. But you can take it that previous year is the year which is previous to the assessment year. So normally the income is earned during the previous year, and after the earning of the income, it is brought to assessment in the assessment year. So if the income has been earned in 1920, let's say, 2021 would be the 2021 financial year would be the assessment year when the income will be assessed. Because how much income has been there can be only assessed once it has been earned. So when 2021 is the assessment year, 1920 will be considered to be the year which is previous to the assessment year. So that is the previous year. तो किसी साल के भी प्रीवियस ईयर से पहले दिन से पहले अगर प्रकाशित हो जाता है जनगणना का जो जनगणना में जो पॉपुलेशन के आंकड़े थे, जो सुसंगत आंकड़े थे, रेलेवेंट फिगर्स, अगर वो पब्लिश कर दिए जाते हैं तो वो आंकड़े पॉपुलेशन की डेफिनेशन में आएंगे. ये पॉपुलेशन वर्ड यूज किया गया है जहां पर हम लोग म्यूनिसिपैलिटी की पॉपुलेशन का जिक्र कर रहे हैं. नाउ वी कम टू नेक्स्ट डेफिनेशन. This is 1B, and this deals with amalgamation. Amalgamation का मतलब है जब सम्मिलन हो जाता है या मिल जाती हैं दो कंपनियां आपस में, इसको मर्जर भी बोलते हैं, लेकिन amalgamation is the technical word. जैसे दो धातु मिलके अलॉय बन जाते हैं तो उसको एमालगमेशन बोलते हैं. जब दोनों की अपनी अपनी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक नहीं रहती और नई कैरेक्टरिस्टिक पैदा हो जाती, दैट इज अ लिटरल डेफिनेशन. तो लिटरल डेफिनेशन हमको कब लेनी होती है? एक्ट में अगर कोई चीज डिफाइंड नहीं है, देन यू कैन टेक अ लिटरल डेफिनेशन. अगर एक्ट में कोई चीज डिफाइंड नहीं है तो हो सकता है एक जनरल क्लॉजेज एक्ट है उसमें वो चीज डिफाइंड हो, तो वहां से भी मीनिंग ग्रहण किया जा सकता है. अगर वहां भी वो चीज डिफाइंड नहीं है, then you can use the literary meaning of it, keeping in mind what was the intention behind bringing the provision in the minds of the lawmakers. Now, the meaning of the word amalgamation, और ये बड़ी फंडामेंटल चीजें हैं, बिकॉज जब आप ये चीज क्लियर कर लेंगे, then all the other things will become easier for you. So therefore, spend time on these things. Now, amalgamation in relation to companies means the merger of one or more companies with another company. एक या उससे ज्यादा कंपनीज का किसी और कंपनी के साथ सम्मिलन, और द मर्जर ऑफ टू और मोर कंपनीज टू फॉर्म वन कंपनी, या दो या उससे ज्यादा कंपनीज का मिलकर एक कंपनी बना देना. द कंपनी और कंपनीज विच सो मर्ज बीइंग रेफर्ड टू एज द अमालगमेटिंग कंपनी और द कंपनीज. जो कंपनियां मर्ज हो रही हैं उनको एमालगमेटिंग कंपनी कहा जाता है या एमालगमेटिंग कंपनीज कहा जाता है. एंड द कंपनी विथ विच दे मर्ज, और जिस कंपनी के साथ वो मर्ज करती हैं, और विच इज फॉर्म्ड एज द रिजल्ट ऑफ द मर्जर, या जो मर्जर के परिणाम स्वरूप बनती है, उसको अमालगमेटेड कंपनी कहा जाता है. एंड इन सच ए मैनर, द मर्जर happens in such a manner that all the property of the amalgamating company or the companies immediately before the amalgamation becomes the property of the amalgamated company by virtue of the amalgamation. Amalgamating कंपनी या कंपनियों की जितनी भी प्रॉपर्टी थी अमेलगमेशन से ठीक पहले, इमीडिएटली बिफोर, वो अमेलगमेटेड कंपनी की प्रॉपर्टी बन जाती है उस अमेलगमेशन के कारण से. और इसके अलावा all the liabilities of the amalgamating company or the companies immediately before the amalgamation, जितनी भी liabilities थी amalgamating company की या amalgamating companies की, वो amalgamated company की liabilities बन जाती हैं by virtue of the amalgamation. यानी पहले तो जितनी संपत्ति है वो बन जाती है amalgamating company की, amalgamated company की बन जाती हैं, और उसके बाद जो liabilities हैं वो भी amalgamating company की, amalgamated company की liabilities बन जाती हैं. और जहाँ तक कैपिटल का सवाल है, तो शेयर होल्डर्स हु आर होल्डिंग नॉट लेस देन 3/4 इन वैल्यू ऑफ द शेयर्स इन द अमेलगमेटिंग कंपनी, अमेलगमेट होने वाली कंपनियों में 3/4 मूल्य के शेयर्स जिन शेयर होल्डर्स के पास हैं, other than the shares already held therein immediately before the amalgamation by or by a nominee for the amalgamated company or its subsidiary, उन शेयर्स को छोड़ते हुए जो कि कोई भी नॉमिनी के द्वारा, अमेलगमेटेड कंपनी के नॉमिनी के द्वारा कोई शेयर पहले से रखे जा रहे हैं अपने पास या अपनी सब्सिडियरी के लिए रखे जा रहे हैं, उनको हटाते हुए बाकी शेयर्स का जो 3/4 मूल्य के शेयर्स हैं वो अमेलगमेटेड कंपनी के शेयर होल्डर्स हो जाते हैं अमेलगमेशन की वजह से. 3/4 यानी 75%. तो ये 3 कंडीशन है अमेलगमेशन की. Otherwise than as a result of the acquisition of the property of one company by another company. और ये जो अमेलगमेशन हो रहा है, ये जो लायबिलिटीज और जो एसेट्स प्रॉपर्टीज ट्रांसफर हो रही हैं, ये प्रॉपर्टी के एक्विजिशन के माध्यम से नहीं होता है, जिसमें एक कंपनी ने दूसरी कंपनी की प्रॉपर्टी को खरीद लिया या एक्वायर कर लिया परचेज के रूप में, या फिर ऐसे प्रॉपर्टी के डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के रूप में दूसरी कंपनी को वाइंडिंग अप के बाद फर्स्ट मेंशन कंपनी, यानी पहली कंपनी जो अमेलगमेट हो रही थी वो वाइंड अप हो गई और उसकी प्रॉपर्टी दूसरी कंपनी को मिल गई. तो ये वाइंडिंग अप के रूप में ये प्रॉपर्टी का ट्रांसफर जो होता है या फिर परचेज के रूप में ट्रांसफर होता है, वो अमेलगमेशन का पार्ट नहीं होता. अब आते हैं 1C पर. एडिशनल कमिश्नर मीन्स अ पर्सन अपॉइंटेड टू बी एन एडिशनल कमिश्नर. 117 सेक्शन के सब सेक्शन 1 के तहत यदि किसी पर्सन का अपॉइंटमेंट एडिशनल कमिश्नर के रूप में किया जाता है तो उसको एडिशनल कमिश्नर बोलते हैं. इसी तरह से 117(1) के तहत किसी का अपॉइंटमेंट अगर एडिशनल डायरेक्टर होने के लिए टू बी एन एडिशनल डायरेक्टर किया जाता है तो उसको एडिशनल डायरेक्टर कहा जाता है. उसके बाद 2(2) कहता है कि एनुअल वैल्यू को डिफाइन किया गया है, और चूंकि एनुअल वैल्यू को सेक्शन 23 में पहले ही डिफाइन किया गया है तो इसलिए वहीं से एनुअल वैल्यू वर्ड की डेफिनेशन को इंपोर्ट किया जा रहा है. एन एनुअल वैल्यू इन रिलेशन टू एनी प्रॉपर्टी मीन्स इट्स एनुअल वैल्यू as determined under section 23, so that the same thing is not repeated in two places. It is imported from there. It is referred to that section. Now 2(4), appellate tribunal means the appellate tribunal which is constituted under section 252. Section 252 delineates in detail कि एपेलेट ट्राइब्यूनल किस प्रकार से कॉन्स्टिट्यूट होंगे. So that definition is being imported here from section 252. Approved gratuity fund means a gratuity fund which has been and continues to be approved by the Principal Chief Commissioner. It is that gratuity fund which has been approved, यानी जिसका अनुमोदन किया गया रहा है, and continues to be approved, और अभी भी लगातार अप्रूव्ड है प्रिंसिपल चीफ कमिश्नर के द्वारा या चीफ कमिश्नर के द्वारा या प्रिंसिपल कमिश्नर या कमिश्नर के द्वारा. फोर्थ शेड्यूल के पार्ट सी के रूल्स के अनुसार, यानी जो हमारा इनकम टैक्स एक्ट का जो फोर्थ शेड्यूल है उसमें ये लिखा हुआ है कि अप्रूव ग्रेचुइटी फंड का अप्रूवल किस प्रकार से किया जाए, उसके बारे में वहाँ रूल्स हैं. और उसके पार्ट सी में ये मेंशन है कि अप्रूव ग्रेचुइटी फंड का किस तरह से अप्रूवल होगा. तो अप्रूव ग्रेचुइटी फंड वो है जो इस प्रकार से अप्रूव्ड है फोर्थ शेड्यूल के तहत, पार्ट सी के तहत जो रूल्स हैं उनके तहत अप्रूव्ड है. उसके बाद अप्रूव्ड सुपर एनुएशन फंड, ये भी अनुमोदित सुपर एनुएशन फंड का मतलब है वो सुपर एनुएशन फंड. सुपर एनुएशन मीन्स इन नॉर्मल पार्लेंस रिटायरमेंट. तो वो सुपर एनुएशन फंड या उसका कोई पार्ट विच हैज बीन एंड कंटिन्यूज टू बी अप्रूव्ड, जो अप्रूव्ड किया गया रहा था और अभी भी वो कंटिन्यू कर रहा है, अप्रूव्ड है प्रिंसिपल सीसीआईटी के द्वारा या सीसीआईटी के द्वारा या पीसीआईटी के द्वारा या सीआईटी के द्वारा, in accordance with the rules contained in part B of the fourth schedule. ऐसे रूल्स के तहत जो कि फोर्थ शेड्यूल के पार्ट बी में चलाए जा रहे हैं. नाउ सेक्शन 7 says assessee means a person by whom any tax or any other sum of money is payable under this act. assessee का मतलब है वो पर्सन जिसके द्वारा कोई टैक्स या दूसरा सम ऑफ मनी is payable under this act, and sum of money is payable, tax or any other sum of money. And when we say tax, we also include interest on tax, because interest on tax is also part of tax. So assessee means a person by whom any tax or any other sum of money is payable under this act, and includes every person in respect of whom any proceeding under this act has been taken. Assessee also means includes. The word include, wherever the word includes is there, it means it is an inclusive definition. Yani it is including certain things inside it, but it is not an exclusive definition. It means that whatever is mentioned after include, assessee does not exclusively mean only that, but assessee, the meaning of the word assessee will be taken to be a person who, by whom any sum of money, any other sum of money, which could be a prosecution or a penalty or any other fees, is payable under the act. And it includes certain things. So assessee की definition is बहुत important है, because every now and then we say assessee. So therefore we must know what the assessee means under the act. Every person in respect of whom any proceeding under this act has been taken. If any proceeding is taken under this act in respect of that, for the assessment of his income or assessment of fringe benefits, the proceedings should relate to the assessment of his income. It should not be something else, some other proceeding. It should be a proceeding for the assessment of his income. So every person in respect of whom any proceeding is taken for the assessment of his income or the assessment of the fringe benefits or assessment of the income of any other person in respect of which he is accessible. So there are certain sections under which somebody is accessible as a representative assessee. He is representing some other assessee, that's why. Since he is representing some other assessee, proceeding which is taken against him for the assessment of that other person whom he is representing, जिसका प्रतिनिधित्व वो कर रहा है, और for the assessment of loss which is sustained by him or by such other person, या जहां पर loss का भी assessment हो रहा है, और assessment of the amount of refund due to him, कितना refund उसको देना देय है, or to such other person, या दूसरे किसी इस तरह के person को, तो that person will also be considered an assessee, where the proceeding for assessment of income or fringe benefits or income of other person is going on. Now, 7b says that every person who is deemed to be an assessee under any provision of this act, अगर इस एक्ट का कोई प्रावधान कहता है कि कोई व्यक्ति डीम टू बी एसएससी है, यानी एसएससी मान लिया जाएगा उसको, तो उस केस में भी वो एसएससी कहलाएगा. And every person who is deemed to be an assessee in default under any provision of this act, और ऐसा भी व्यक्ति जो कि deemed to be assessee in default कहा जाता है, जैसे रिकवरी के प्रोविजन है, तो उसमें assessee को deemed to be assessee in default कहा जाता है. And therefore, even when recovery proceedings are going on, that person is called an assessee, because although income is not being assessed in that case. Now you have to think here, अगर किसी को 131 का नोटिस देते हैं समन्स, is he an assessee? You have to think. Now we come to 7a. Assessing officer means assistant commissioner or deputy commissioner or assistant director or deputy director or income tax officer who is vested with the relevant jurisdiction by virtue of directions or orders issued under subsection 1 or subsection 2 of section 120. Assessing officer की definition है, जो assessee को हमने समझ लिया who is the assessee. तो assessing officer would be of the rank of ACIT, DCIT, ADIT, DDIT or ITO, which means that under this definition, unless there is a deeming provision, the assessing officer would be of these jurisdictions, these designations, who is vested with the relevant jurisdiction by virtue of the directions. So the orders under 122 will be passed that this person is the assessing officer and this is his jurisdiction. Vested with the relevant jurisdiction means in the order jurisdiction will also be mentioned. So, and the additional commissioner or the additional director or joint commissioner can also be an assessing officer, or joint director can also be an assessing officer who is directed under 4.4 of that section under 120 to exercise or perform all or any other functions of the assessing officer. So assessing officer की function perform करने के लिए जो section है जिसके अंतर्गत order पास होता है वो 120. अब आते हैं 2.8 पर. 2.8 में assessment आकलन करना, इसको हम नॉर्मल भाषा में हिंदी में बोलते हैं. Assessment includes reassessment. So once again, wherever the word include is there, don't think that assessment में केवल reassessment ही आएगा और कोई चीज नहीं आ सकती है. When we say assessment includes reassessment, इसका मतलब है कि reassessment तो assessment में शामिल है ही, या अगर उल्टा इसको पढ़ा जाए assessment में reassessment भी शामिल है. अगर सीधा पढ़े तो assessment में reassessment भी शामिल है, उल्टा पढ़े तो reassessment तो assessment में शामिल है ही, वो भी कह सकते हैं. Now, भी शब्द का यहाँ पे प्रयोग इंपॉर्टेंट है. रीअसेसमेंट भी शामिल है असेसमेंट में, या असेसमेंट में भी रीअसेसमेंट शामिल है. The assessment year means the period of 12 months which is commencing on the first day of April every year. The period of 12 months जो कि फर्स्ट डे ऑफ अप्रैल से शुरू होता है every year. And now reassessment, you are aware of probably that if after the assessment, if there is an escapement of income, sometimes we do a reassessment. It is normally done starting with section 147. And therefore, then we come to 9A, 29A. Assistant Commissioner means a person who is appointed to be an ACIT or a DCIT under 1171. And all these definitions of Assistant Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner, Assistant, I just hope that they are brought in one place. But normally they are not being disturbed because they are being referred to again and again in various case laws. So those references in the case laws become redundant if you again and again go on changing the section or the subsection of any provision. Everyone kindly keep their mics muted. Mr. Uma Shankar Prasad, आप अपना mic को mute कर लीजिए. Thank you. Now, average rate of income tax. Average rate of income tax means the rate which is arrived at by dividing the amount of income tax which is calculated on the total income by such total income. Now, how the rate is arrived at? We calculate the amount of tax and then we divide that by the total income. Tax divided by the total income gives us the rate. Okay, so how the rate is defined? The amount of income tax calculated on the total income. So it gives us an understanding that income tax is always calculated on what? Total income. कई बार आपके एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन पूछा जाता है टैक्सेबल इनकम. Taxable income is nothing defined in the Income Tax Act. And such questions are normally avoidable. So the income tax is payable on total income. Now, average rate is the income tax divided by the total income. Then we come to block of assets. 211 block of assets. Block of assets means a group of assets falling within a class of assets comprising the tangible assets and the intangible assets. Number one, it is a group of assets. Yani it is an asset which can be grouped together, which means it is a categorization. Assets which are falling in a category. Now, which are those? These are the classes into which the assets are falling. Number one, it is the tangible assets. And number two, it is the intangible assets. These are the two class of assets or the group of assets. A group of assets falling within a class of assets. Please note the language. It may be a group of assets which falls within the class of assets. So class के अंदर आता है group. Class के अंतर्गत क्या आता है? Group. Class कौन कौन सी है? Class दो है, tangible assets and intangible assets. अब एक क्लास में कई ग्रुप हो सकते हैं. एक क्लास में कई ग्रुप हो सकते हैं. And जैसे tangible assets is one of the classes and it could include buildings, machinery, plant और furniture. Tangible का मतलब होता है जिसको आप छू सकते हैं, छू के महसूस कर सकते हैं. Something which can be touched and experienced. And intangible assets being know-how, patents, copyrights, trademarks, licenses, franchises or any other business or commercial rights of similar nature. किसी भी प्रोसेस को करने का तरीका होता है. पेटेंट कोई नई चीज आप इजाद करते हैं तो आप ही उसको यूज कर पाए, दूसरा अगर यूज करना चाहे तो आपको उसका पेमेंट करे कुछ, क्योंकि आपने एक नई क्रिएशन किया है. So many times new medicines are being patented, or many other technologies are also being patented. कॉपीराइट, जैसे कोई आप किताब लिखते हैं तो उस किताब को पब्लिश करने का जो राइट है वो आप ही के पास होना, उसको कॉपी करने का जो राइट है, क्योंकि आपकी कृति है, आपका क्रिएशन है, तो उसको कॉपी करने का राइट भी आप ही के पास होना चाहिए. ट्रेडमार्क्स, लाइसेंसेस, फ्रेंचाइजेस आपने देखा ही है, और एनी अदर बिजनेस और कमर्शियल राइट, कोई वाणिज्यिक अधिकार, इसी तरह उसको वाइडन करने के लिए डेफिनेशन को ये इंक्लूड किया जाता है. इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ विच सेम परसेंटेज ऑफ डेप्रिसिएशन इज प्रेस्क्राइब्ड. तो ये सेम परसेंटेज ऑफ डेप्रिसिएशन किसके लिए प्रेस्क्राइब होता है? ग्रुप ऑफ एसेट्स के लिए. जिस ग्रुप ऑफ एसेट्स के लिए सेम परसेंटेज ऑफ डेप्रिसिएशन प्रेस्क्राइब्ड है, तो ग्रुप ऑफ एसेट्स किससे कैटेगराइज होता है? बाय द परसेंटेज ऑफ डेप्रिसिएशन. डेप्रिसिएशन होता है जो ह्रास या जिस कोई चीज का मूल्य गिरता है, जो अलाउड है इनकम टैक्स के एक्ट के अंतर्गत. तो जिस एसेट्स के लिए सेम परसेंटेज है वो एक ग्रुप में आता है, और एक ग्रुप जो है वो क्लास ऑफ एसेट्स के अंतर्गत आता है. प्रेस्क्राइब वर्ड का मतलब है प्रेस्क्राइब अंडर रूल्स, यानी जिसके लिए कोई रूल बना हुआ है. नाउ एट दिस जंक्चर I will stop for a while, and I will treat it as part 1 of the lecture, which is completed now, and we will continue with this lecture in part 2 tomorrow at the prescribed time. And therefore, I thank you all for today's lecture, which has come to an end.